For multi-passionate entrepreneurs like myself, you've likely been told that you have way too many interests. I know I've been told that my whole life, but I really don't think they're a bad thing. And I want to give you a name for it. It actually means that you're a visionary. Okay. It's not a bad thing to have multiple passions and lots of different interests. In fact, I think it's one of the things that make people really unique and create a real sense of depth in all of us. So by the end of this video, you will have some clarity as to how to find what is the most important project to you and where to start focusing your energy. Because most of the time, that's what you're struggling with, is like finding the energy to do your passion and where to focus your time and how to focus your time and how to get rid of all of the other things that you want to do so that you can make progress on one or two of the many passions and interests that you have. So I will not be telling you in this video how to find one thing. My goal is to help you realize that all of them have a place, just not all at the same time. Okay. So first off, I want to welcome you back to the Practice Your Perfect podcast. And if you are new to my channel, my name is Ashley Tate. And my goal with this podcast is really to share info to make you more profitable, purposeful, and productive so we can practice our way to success together. All right. So first, let me give you a little bit of background. First off, I've always been a multi-passionate person. Even at 41, I'm a mom and I've started nonprofit businesses and regular businesses. And I still currently run my nonprofit as well as an online business consultancy. And it's something that I just love. I love astrology. Like I can nerd out on all those things like forever. I'm on the school boosters. I've done a lot of different things. I occasionally play soccer. I'm always doing things. Like I have a lot of passions. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with this. So all of these things make me happy. And I'm sure all of the things that you are interested in doing make you happy too. That's the whole key. That's why I don't want to help you hone down to one thing, because I think you really do need all of them. I think what the most important part of this is realizing that there is a thread that runs through all of those things. And once you kind of figure out what that thread is, you will start to feel a sense of kind of calm around that, because I've been there. Okay. And it's a real struggle bus. But I think once you decide I'm okay with being a multi-passionate person, it is the thing that makes me who I am. Right. And all of those experiences and skills and values that you have are like a loaf of bread that's been baked into you over time. So from the moment that you were born and all the things that you did when you were a child, I used to create stories. I used to act like I was the teacher, and I've done all of those things in some form in my careers, right? All of the businesses I've started, doing YouTube, all of these things interact with people. They require you to tell stories. They require you to teach, creating courses, all of those things. So you'll start to see that really there's a lot more in common with what you're doing in all of the interests that you have than not. Like if you're somebody who likes to enjoy a lot of adventures and you're going places and doing things all the time, and you love to travel and you like to do music and you like to do art and you like to do this, like you are a creative person. That's the thread. Like you are a creative person. And that's okay. That's a great thing. If you're someone who's like me, like I've been in public relations, I've done event planning, I've created the nonprofit. I love working online with random people and encouraging them. And so for me, I'm like a cheerleader to people, right? I love helping people. That's part of who I am. So it's finding that thread between all of them that I think sometimes is, a very calming piece to this whole process. Now, the other piece of this is that intentional prioritization is one of the things that I think is really a big deal here. And that's why I want to share my method of learning how to prioritize what's most important to you right now, so that you can discover the power of being a multi-passionate person and achieving your highest vision of yourself without feeling bad about the fact that, yes, we have a lot of interests and we know that we know this, and now we know how to harness it. But most of the time, we aren't really upset that we have so many passions, but we're lacking the time to focus on them. And that's really where the friction comes in. So if you're feeling a lot of friction around like, oh, I want to do all these things, but I don't know where to start, that's generally where the friction comes in. It's the lack of time. And I really want to help you guys get through that because that friction requires intentional prioritization. So understanding that balance is a misnomer. Let's just get that out of the way, that the idea of balance in work and life and family and all those things and what you love and what you want to do is it's not really like a true thing, right? Like the way I think of boundaries is, not boundaries. The way I think of balance is focusing on what's important when it's most important. And when we place our interests and our passions in a prioritization, then we know how to spend our time. We know where to spend our time. We know what we're doing with our time, and that friction goes away. So setting boundaries for yourself and for your other hobbies or your interests and all of those things requires a little discipline. It requires a little reflection. And we're going to talk about all of that in this video, but it requires all of that, right? It also requires setting boundaries for the people around you so that you can make time for the things that are most important to you, and especially those passions, right? So for a lot of us, we are creative. We want to do a lot of other things. And the modes of distraction required by just living life and taking care of other people and the responsibilities and things that we have, that's where the frustration and the friction comes in. It's not necessarily the passions. So I really want to get that out there because a lot of times we think it's the passions and all the different passions that we have. And that's why we can't focus. And that's why we don't know what's going on. But I want to point this out to you. Let's just say that you're an artist, but your art doesn't pay the bills. So it doesn't pay the bills, but it does make you really happy, right? And maybe the world needs to see your art. Now, the one thing that if we were talking about the Ikigai, I always want to make sure I get that right. The Ikigai method, you're hitting like 3 of the things that you need for the 4 to fulfill that Ikigai. And if you're an artist, you are hitting the what you love. You're hitting what the world needs, and you're hitting the good at it, but you're not hitting the making money. So you might be falling somewhere up top, like this is a mission of yours if you're doing it more for the world, or maybe you have another reason that you're doing it and you fall into these pieces. But I love the Ikigai method because what that is talking about is trying to always reach your highest level of happiness and to reach your reason for living. Now, a lot of people will call this your purpose, but I believe that if you live on purpose, then you are going to eventually end up in this place of happiness, which is your Ikigai. But it's hard to end up there if you are not intentionally prioritizing and intentionally reflecting on things. So we'll talk about that. So when we're talking about this intentional prioritization, we want to talk about finding the energy givers. Now, a lot of the things that we consider passions, and the reason we consider them passions are because they do give us energy. And we love it. We love the time. We love the effort. So then how do you decide to prioritize which passion so that you're still making progress and you're going to be proud of the work that you're doing instead of just getting stuck doing a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there. So here are the 3 questions I ask myself to determine which energy givers are going to be my current priority. What do you feel guilty working on if you should be working on something else or fulfilling an obligation? I know all of you have been there because this is all the time. I start working on something because I have an idea or I want to start working on it, but I really should be working on something else. Like something else is a little bit more important in an obligation that needs to get done or a responsibility. So when I find myself working on this, I feel a little tinge of guilt because I am working on this and I should be doing something else. So that is one question. The second question is, what do you keep getting drawn to even when you've put it down or you don't make money from it yet, or at least can't support yourself from it? For me, this would be something like my book. I love working on my book. I love working on, different ideas for it and all of that. And so whenever I put it aside, I'm like, okay, I don't need to work on that. That will be something I work on next. I always find myself thinking about it and I want to work on it and I want to do things with it. And so right now, that's not going to be the thing to pay any bills. So I'm not working on that one thing. What projects have you started but wish you didn't have to focus on? Now, sometimes we have started projects that might be really successful or may have gotten off the ground and it's doing really well right now, but it still requires some of your focus. And sometimes you don't want to work on whatever that passion was or still is. It's just not a priority in the moment. And so write those down. And then as you figure out the answers to those questions, it will come to you that this is really what I want to work on. And it's going to be between that 1 and 2 question. What do you keep getting drawn to, even when you put it down, but that you don't make money from yet? Or what is something that you feel really guilty about when you're working on other things? I tend to go with number 1, which is what do you feel guilty about when you're working on it? Because that's how I know that that's where my passion really lies right this moment. The next thing after you've done this intentional prioritization and you've answered those questions, multi-passionate people really have to learn how to manage their time. And that's really what it comes down to, and prioritize what's important, right? So if you are going to start working on the number 1 for yourself, it's going to take focus and it's going to require practice. So we can't focus at the same time though, right? We can't focus on like 2 things at the same time. So that's where the practice your perfect comes in. This is my method that I use. I talk about it on a lot of my videos, and it's a 6-week process, a 13-week process actually, but it's a 6-week process where you would give yourself a deadline to really focus on something for 6 weeks. And I started doing this because I realized that I like to dabble into a lot of different things, and then you'll look up and you haven't really finished anything. So once I started using this 6-week process, I look at them as kind of like short sprints, and I can use this to figure out exactly what I'm going to be focusing my attention on for the next 6 weeks. And now what this makes you do is it makes you focus 80% of your energy and time on whatever the project is that you chose for this 6 weeks. And the other projects that maybe are running in the background are just simply that. They are running in the background. They will not get all of your attention. They may not be perfect anymore. They might even not be awesome at all. And that's okay. And that's the part that you have to be okay with, is that you're going to put these things on the back burner for a while so you can focus on your current passion. And this is the real part of the method, because in the reset process and the practice your perfect method, the 161 is where we really get to reflect and reset. And then we use our 6 weeks to focus on whatever that project is that we're focusing on. And then when we go to the next one, that's where we take a day to really kind of reevaluate, reflect, see how far we've made it. Do we want to continue in this path on this project or not? That way, it requires you to be fiercely focused on something. And it doesn't mean that you have left something alone for such a long time that you can never get back to it. That's not what that means. It means that for a while, I'm going to focus here. And then after those 6 weeks are up, you can reevaluate and decide if you're going to focus on those other things or not. So this has worked really well for me. This was how I decided a few years ago to start my nonprofit. I was writing a book at the same time, or trying to write the book. And although I loved writing the book, I really wanted to start this nonprofit. So I decided to stop writing the book for a while, for at least 6 weeks. I focused on getting the nonprofit started, putting all the things in place. And this took I would probably say it took about 13 weeks all in all. Like, I know for sure it took a month to do a lot of the setup. And then it also made me, work fiercely on just that to make sure I got all of that done. Then I could go back to the book, or I could go 50-50, or I could add it in, or I could stop on the nonprofit and work on the book for another 6 weeks. But it allows you to really prioritize and focus for 6 weeks at a time, or 13 weeks at a time, however you'd like to do it, where you're setting timelines and deadlines for yourself so that you're never getting too far away from something. Maybe you practice piano or something, and for now you want to learn a different instrument. Well, you can stop practicing piano so that you can learn this new instrument and really kind of get a handle on it for 6 weeks, and then add piano back in, or focus on piano for 6 weeks and then go back and forth between the two. One of the notes I want to make on Ikigai and happiness and finding those 4 areas and determining for yourself what's most important is you don't find Ikigai. Just like I say, you don't find your purpose. The goal is really to focus on getting closer to Ikigai. Okay. And to use it as an action, right? Like an actionable thing that we do, something to constantly work on or work towards, and practice continually and then make that. So you try to make that alignment or that attainment of becoming Ikigai, right? Finding how to, finding your Ikigai, like you make that the intention, the journey, the focus. And reflection is such a huge part of the Ikigai philosophy, along with exploring all the paths that come along with that. That's why they have those 4 different directions that you go and you show where you might end up. And that really all comes from reflection. And that's why I love the Practice Your Perfect method that I've started for myself, which is to reflect, work for 6 weeks, reflect on that, work for another 6 weeks. And then you go through another master reset and look at where you are and how you feel about your current projects. Ask those questions, find your highest priority and work towards that. So just remember that as a multi-passionate person, it's totally okay to have all of these different interests. Just remember that your interests do need discipline, just like all of us need discipline to live in life and to do all the things that we do, right? So give yourself some time limits. And I like to use the 6-week increments, but I have used 6 months before, like when I started YouTube. And so the reset to reflect and then start anew and practice your perfect 6 is the way that I use my practice your perfect 6 method. And that helps you to really determine where your vision is. Are you in alignment with it for the next 6 weeks? Is this really where you want to focus your energy? And then give a fierce focus for those 6 weeks and keep going. So it's really not necessary for you to find one thing. It's more important for you to make time for the things that bring you to life. Like they just, life givers. I'm telling you, we all have obligations. We all have responsibilities, but many of us feel like we're failing just because that's where we get stuck. So it's not your multiple passions. It's the feeling stuck because it's the time that we spend on the distractions that make us feel stuck instead of our multi passions. I don't know how many times I could say that, but it's something that I think you can fix. And, yeah, I just want you to remember to just keep living on purpose to find your Ikigai. That's how you actually find it. And it takes practice. It takes experimentation. It takes learning. It takes feedback. It takes pivoting. And life really is the process of focusing on getting closer to your Ikigai. So I just loved learning about Ikigai. I wanted to share it with you guys. I hope it helps. And I want you to focus on living on purpose instead of focusing on finding your purpose. So I hope that helps. I hope this video helped you guys, and I will see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye. And if you are multi-passionate, write down in the comments some of the things that you love to do. I love to always hear like what you guys are into. I look forward to hearing from you. Talk to you soon. Bye.